All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. Fat Pockets. We talking about fat pockets and the bottom line of what is going on in the food industry. Okay. And so yesterday I started to read this huge lawsuit. There's some corrections. It wasn't just 5 companies. I have to correct that. It's 11 companies, if I'm not mistaken, as well as it's not just one law firm, it's actually two. It's Morgan and Morgan and Seeger Wise LLP in different locations. So I just wanted to make that correction. And it's a young man named Bryce Martinez, and he is the person who's suing Kraft Heinz. But I'm going to go over that as well as we continue to read this lawsuit. So the introduction is what we read yesterday. That was curious. Let me make sure that everything is on the up and up before I continue. We're down to the party section. I think I was saying that I was going to skip over it. Welcome to those who've just joined us. Artists, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is some interesting stuff here. Brooklyn Homestead, welcome. So we are going to get into this lawsuit. I took the liberty because I said something yesterday and I was like, I think this is $1 trillion, net worth of all of these companies, right? So I took the liberty to look it up. Okay. And so we're going to go over that as we are on this part of the lawsuit. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Share my screen. Don't act kind of shady. Okay, let's share the screen here. Shout out to everybody who's just joined us. Welcome to the conversation. Shout out to the viewers of subscribers. I thought it was funny. The other day, I got the other day I received a feedback on the Bob Marley situation, the Bob Marley videos that I did. And I got this long, thank you so much. This was great. And they're giving me all their feedback. And then at the end, the person going to say, don't sing in all capital letters. I'm like, what? So, in true Amuna fashion, I was like, in the infamous words of Marcia Griffiths, I will sing as long as I live. Come on, now how you gonna tell the people don't sing? Make a joyful noise. Anyway, let's get back to this topic. So that was playful, but I'm like, how we that make a joyful noise. Sing unto the Most High a new song. You understand? How you gonna tell people don't sing? Anywho, so here we are at the parties section of this particular conversation. And like I said, I took the liberty to look up the net worth of these particular companies. So Kraft Heinz, I put it in order. Actually, I put it into Chat GPT and then Chat GPT put it in order. So we're going to go in order. Coca-Cola, $271 billion net worth. PepsiCo, $244 billion net worth. Nestle, $213 billion net worth. Mars, $17 billion net worth. Kraft Heinz, $38.3 billion. Mondelez, $34.4 billion. General Mills, $35.9 billion. Kellanova, I didn't even know what Kellanova was, $27.7 billion. Kellogg, $27.6 billion. ConAgra, $13 billion. And Post Holdings. Post, I guess don't nobody want no Raisin Bran. Why y'all got Post struggling out here? Right? Post is out here at $6.87 billion. Post look like so them never not try. Okay? Post look like so them never not try. Anyway, when we add that all up, I was correct in my guesstimation. $1.02 trillion. That is the net worth. What is the national debt right now? Listen, this is the net worth of these 11 companies listed in this lawsuit. When they say it's the first of its kind, this is more GDP than many countries. $1 trillion net worth. Let me see the national debt, and then I'm gonna go forward. National debt. I know it went up recently, but let's see what it is now. The national debt currently is at $36 trillion. I mean, 36.17 trillion. That's the national debt they claim right now. Okay. But these companies collectively, 11 companies, are worth $1 trillion. As I said, that is more gross GDP than many countries. But anyway, let's continue with this lawsuit. So again, Kraft, we went over this. These are all the companies they calling out name by name. They did a roll call. So now let's get to jurisdiction and venue. I just want to do that for my own entertainment value because, Okay. Defendants designed. So this is what now they're accusing them of. Designed, manufactured, packaged. I don't want to jump ahead. I'm trying to figure out how much they want to be compensated, because there's a lot of people who got diabetes messing around with this food. Defendants designed, manufactured, packaged, labeled, marketed, sold, and or distributed various UPF, and we learned yesterday, ultra processed food, right? Throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and specifically in Philadelphia County. Personal jurisdiction is proper pursuant 42 PACS 9315301. Defendants are domiciled in Pennsylvania or have consented to jurisdiction in Pennsylvania. Defendants conducted and continue to conduct substantial and systematic business activities in this jurisdiction. So there's like, yeah, we getting you for all of those bean pies, all of those moon pies you were distributing out here in Pennsylvania. I guess, we're to believe that's where the young man lived, right? Because why else would you be doing it in Pennsylvania? Venue is proper in Philadelphia County, PA RCP 1006217A2, as defendants regularly conduct business in Pennsylvania County or Philadelphia County, and plaintiff was exposed, diagnosed, and treated in Philadelphia County. So, it's not like we suing you for all the stuff you're doing in the United States of America just for the money you was getting in Philadelphia. This is curious. Anyway, 51. Plaintiff's claims in this action are brought solely under state law. Plaintiff does not herein bring, assert, or allege either expressly or impliedly any causes of action arising under any federal, state regulation or provision. Thus, there is no federal jurisdiction in this action on the basis of a federal question under 28 USC 1331. Okay, so they're like, oh, we don't know about that. We honing in, right? This is state issue. This is not federal. This must be their legal strategy. Let's continue. For those who just joined us, welcome. We are currently reading this lawsuit that just dropped last week. It's huge. These companies all together, they are heavy hitters, $1 trillion net worth of 11 companies, food companies, that is, ultra processed food companies. Okay. And like I said, the list of these, if you want to see a little bit about their history, going over to the History Channel, okay? They'll tell you. But let's continue here. Okay, statement of facts. This is the part we were trying to get to. So, okay, we got jurisdiction. We see who you coming for. Number one, numero uno, ultra processed foods. What are UPFs, you ask? Oh, sorry. If they would have put an apostrophe S, it would have been like ultra processed foods. So I'm sorry, threw me off. UPF is a what is good? Good night. UPF is a categorization of food defined by the NOVA system, a scientific framework developed by epidemiologist Carlos Monteiro. The NOVA system is widely used in the international scientific community and categorizes food based on the extensiveness of processing without regard to nutrition composition. So the further you get, the amount of processes, and I came across this in my studies, that it goes through is the further away from actual whole foods it is, right? And so this system counts or it grades the food end product by this standard, right? Which I think is curious. Like, was it exposed to, was it boiled? Was it exposed to heat? Was it extruded? Like all of the things that can kind of change the composition of the food and thereby changing how we, the people, consume and process this food. 54. The key insight underlining NOVA is that food is more than just the sum of its macronutrients, and that food, not nutrients, is the fundamental unit in nutrition. Interesting. Why got to be either or? Let's continue. But again, epidemiologists came up with this, so let's see. Traditional diets throughout the world are healthful, even though they diverge widely in their nutrient content. What do they mean by healthful? What do you mean by that? But let me go. For example, traditional Asian diets are high in salt. Traditional Latin American diets are high in carbohydrates, and traditional Mediterranean diets are high in fat. Nevertheless, all promote healthful lives and positive health. I don't know. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know what legal researcher did this one right here. That's a reach. I'm seeing some holes. Cause then one would have to prove that high rates of diabetes, cancers, high blood pressure don't exist in these cultures. And the reality is, this is a worldwide epidemic. Like, for instance, in countries such as places like in West Africa, okay, where starch has become a key component in the diet, you still have the same adverse effects because you're eating fufu and you're eating a lot of plantain and you're eating a lot of rice. I mean, you're eating a lot of jollof and you're eating, when you look at some of the plates, it's starch upon starch upon starch. It's going to have the same adverse effect. In Latin America, you see the same thing. I came across studies about what's going on in Mexico and certain Latin American countries. So number 55, 56. UPF are fundamentally different than the foods that make up traditional diets. UPFs are industrially produced edible substances that are imitations of food. He called it substances that are imitations of food. UPF are formulations of cheap industrial ingredients using a series of industrial processes. I mean, this is true. And even when people start off on a good foot, if they sell out, like Siete just did, okay? I know if you go to New Siete, they came on the screen, they was using avocado oil and all of that. Now I heard they sold out to, I think it's either Pepsi or Coca-Cola, one of the two. And we know what's about to come next, and or canola oil. But anyway, these ultra-processed foods are not modified foods, but formulations made mostly or entirely of fractionated substances that have undergone hydrolysis, hydrogenation, or other chemical modifications, and contains ingredients that have no or rare culinary use. This part is true. And when you want to make, like right now, I'm in the middle of making a new healthy snack. To find whole foods and to use whole foods is what I'm doing. It costs money. Why? Because they make the whole foods cost money more than the cheaper foods. And the reality, a lot of these foods that are no longer foods are byproducts of processes, right? But anyway, so they didn't want to throw them away. They wanted to find something to do with it. And then they found, oh, look, it's good in bread. It's good in this. It's good in that. And that's how a lot of this junk got in the food. But anyway. So he's like, this is not real food, Yana, such as fructose, high fructose corn syrup, fruit juice concentrates, invert sugar, maltodextrin, dextrose, lactose, hydrogenated or intersterified oils, hydrogenized protein, soya protein isolate, gluten, casein, whey protein, mechanically separated meat, and additives such as colors, flavor enhances, emulsifiers, emulsifying salts, artificially sweetened thickeners and foaming, anti-foaming agent, bulking, carbonating, gelling, and glazing agents. Ooh. Homie went in. Some of these are definitely not food, okay? And in the food processing, it's partly because of the taste and the variations in what humans now desire as food. So it's two sides. There's even a somebody who made a business of selling ugly vegetables and fruits, the things that they feel will no longer sell in the supermarket because they're not aesthetically pleasing. Okay. So this is like a two-sided conversation where we now think that apple has to be perfect. So the grower has to make the apple perfect or it will perish in the stores, right? So it's been a tango. It's less of an individual dance. It's more of this has become this kind of tango between the consumer and the producer, right? Because if you see things in its natural state, because people are no longer used to seeing things in their natural state, guess what happens? It stays on the shelf because people don't want that. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Let's continue. 58. Additives are used either to disguise unpleasant sensory protein properties. I just said that. See, I'm reading it as I'm reading it with you guys. So this is why I may stop and say something. It's just my mind doing what it does. And they came and answered it in 58. Additives are used either to disguise unpleasant sensory properties created by ingredients. For instance, if you bought peanut butter, real natural peanut butter, the oil is going to separate from the fibers and the protein in the peanut butter. But most people don't want oily top peanut butter. So they're going to get the one that they did all of these processes so that it can spread smooth, because real peanut butter may be chunky and tear your bread up, right? Processes or packaging used in the manufacture of ultra processed products or give the final product intense sensory properties, especially attractive to see, taste, smell, and or touch, or both. I'm trying to figure out who they blaming on that one. These substances are then assembled. First of all, listen, the when you when you read or watch what I'm advising, the foods that built America, and you read and you watch the one about the Heinz ketchup, they're saying that this ketchup, what they first call it, it wasn't ketchup, catsup is what they used to call it, was to disguise the rottening taste of meat. And the people, because they didn't have proper refrigeration and storage back in that time, they used to put this substance on their meat to disguise the fact that it stunk and it was rotten. And check that out. So this is what I'm saying. What came first, the chicken or the egg? I think Frankenstein's experiment just got out of control. But it was birthed initially out of some type of necessity. I think I saw one where these jokers was putting borax, if I'm not mistaken, in milk, and they didn't realize why they were making people sick. Yo, they was doing wild stuff back in the day. Wild stuff. Okay. Anyway, 59. These substances are then assembled into end products using industrial processes such as extrusion, molding, and pre-frying. Sophisticated and attractive packaging is used, usually made of synthetic materials. And again, as somebody who's in the food industry, they make these cheap little materials very easily accessible. I've gone through the gamut to look for bamboo, rice paper, craft paper. Does it hold? I mean, they make it almost impossible. But nonetheless, I'll continue. I'm gonna try not to go into these rants because they in my wheelhouse right now. The practical way to identify UPF is to see if it list of ingredients contains substances that are never or rarely used in kitchen. If so, the product is UPF. That's what I tell people. If you flip the back and you can't read any of those ingredients, put it on, not near me. Processes and ingredients used for the manufacture of UPF are designed to create highly profitable products, low-cost ingredients, long shelf life, and branded products that are hyper palatable and owned by transnational corporations. Another one of these problems is the bread. Bread, as somebody who makes bread, does not sit on the shelf for 2, 3, and 4 weeks and still soft. That if you look on the back of the bread, I don't food that. Flour, the basis of bread, flour, water, and little salt. Now, if you want to get fancy, maybe you put little milk, coconut milk if you want, yeast if you're gonna make a loaf. But all of this other stuff, not belong in a bread. Anyway, UPF are engineered to be overconsumed, addictive, and irresistible. Huh. So much things to say right now. 63. These features, along with aggressive marketing, including vivid packaging. Why are they hating on the packaging? I mean, people are visual creatures. I mean, they hating on this packaging heavy. I could see if they said the packaging was misleading. But vivid packaging, bruh? What do you want them to do? Make it black and white? Health claims, establishment of franchise outlets, campaigns using social, electronic, broadcast, and print media, including to children and in schools, has caused UPF to displace real food. This is happening in other countries. There have been reports, investigative reports in Mexico, that Coca-Cola is going in and sponsoring and perverting the taste buds of the children. I was saying pervert in South America, in India, right? So this is, again, there was one, I think it was a village in Australia from the Aborigines. I think I had watched that one. And Coca-Cola came in. And next thing you know, the people them addicted to Coca-Cola. Next thing you know, the people them are get overweight and all kind of health issues. And they ran out Coca-Cola out of them village. Anyway, UPF are inherently and uniquely dangerous. Dangerous. It's dangerous. 64. The nature of the processes and ingredients used in their manufacture make UPF intrinsically unhealthy. 65. UPF has been extensively studied in the epidemiological research. This epidemiology, the study of diseases, right? All right. Large, rigorous, high quality, specific studies, have found that consuming UPF significantly increase risk of cancer, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, distal colon cancer, pancreatic cancer. What is that? Adenocarcinoma of the esophagus, throat cancer essentially, head and neck cancer, gastric non-cardia, renal cell. I could jump down here, so, and these are all their references. Hold on for me. Carcinoma. Hold on for me. It was getting kind of spicy in here. All right. Lung, brain, diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, ovarian cancer. This look like one of them commercial. Cardiovascular disease, cerebrovascular disease, irritable bowel disease, and chronic kidney. So we never put type 2 diabetes. And that here so far. Wait, hold on. Let me make sure I never miss it. Obesity. Let me see. Oh, you never put that one there. Anyway, let's continue. Oh, wait. Me did think him done. Somebody skip a whole space yourself. Me did think it done. Crohn's disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, depression, anxiety, and frailty. You know, hear that? So when you go to the supermarket, I walk up and down, I put just when you think about it, you say you put this in your cat, you put a little ding dong in your cat. Just think all of one of them something that will pop up in that list. Let me see what's going on in the chat, and then I'll come back. Lala says added sauce in some foods. Would you consider? Yeah, I saw that one come up. You know, that was another one I saw some people reading over. Lala, welcome. Fab and Good, welcome. All everybody, welcome to the conversation. Queenie, welcome to the conversation. I was over here in these books real quick. This is something that why I'm talking about it. If you missed yesterday's introduction to this conversation, the very first video I did on YouTube was How's Your Health? The very first video I did on YouTube was talking about what this lawsuit is talking about. Now, that was in 2009. We are in the year 2024. So if I like, how am so hype on this? Because I've been saying this and sharing this information for years, along with many other people who have been trying to ring the alarm on this subject. I tell another story real quick. I'm going to go back to this. Much like everybody else, I wasn't aware of all of these additives. I kind of was because I grew up understanding ITAL, right? But as you go along, you get lax. You're trusting food. You pick up this, you pick up that, right? Next thing you know, I went overseas. So I went overseas and thing. None of this, the pre-processed foods is not in Ethiopia. Not to the degree that it's here. There ain't no McDonald's, there ain't no all of that stuff. Anyway, long story short, if you're going to eat it, somebody just made it. Somebody just milled it. It was that kind of thing. Anyway, I did a lot of walking, exercise, all of the weight just come out. Boom. So by the time I reached back foreign now, I felt like I was in another world because the chip aisle alone was what an entire Ferengi store would be, right? The chip aisle alone. So when I came back, I was like, I had a moment like, yo, we wilding in America right now. And this is a true story. So when my mother house, I'ma say, Mommy, all of this for that way. It's a true story. This is 2009. And I took a garbage bag. And for those who just joined us, welcome. We're reading this Morgan & Morgan lawsuit. I took a garbage bag and everything that had additives, everything that had preservatives, everything that did not meet the criteria, I started throwing in this bag. I mean, I throw the lady food in her. She said, where I do picnic? Where I do I want to the picnic? I was like, yo, all of this gotta go. It's all garbage. Don't eat none of it. You understand what I'm saying? And then long story short, I went on a whole journey of just ringing the alarm and telling a lot of people about, what we need to be mindful of. So to see this, how many years later, it's over 15 years later, it's crazy. But let's continue. That was a funny day, man. I think I took a picture of that joint too. I don't know where that picture's at. She's like, where you doing my food? I said, no, man, this ain't no food, man. This is for dash way. Anyway, 66. Importantly, these scientific studies control for nutrient composition of UPF. In other words, the risks caused by UPF are not solely a function of the amount of calories, fat, sugar, salt, carbohydrates, protein, or other macronutrients consumed. That's the part. I know they probably have some health specialists on it, and I think they need to drill down more in this part right here, because they're part and parcel. One, they're interconnected. They're trying to separate it so that they can solely blame these ailments on UPFs. But the reality is, I don't know that you could separate them. 67. Instead, UPF cause unique health risks, separate and apart from the nutrient quality of a diet. See, it's coming like we did in the liar meeting. These risks are further compounded by the poor dietary quality of UPFs. I think it expedites the issue, right? But I don't think that it can be separate and apart from, because one would then have to prove that these ailments did not exist before the introduction of these UPFs into the market. Therefore, you would have to prove cancer did not exist before, and all of these other ailments, they did not exist in the manner or in the scale that they exist today. But to say that they didn't exist, then they would have to prove that, because this is what they're asserting, right? 68. The unique health risk of UPF are also exacerbated, that's the word I was trying to find in my mind, by the fact that UPFs are engineered to be overconsumed. They keep saying it, and I know, they say, you keep saying something that is going to be true, but I mean, we're going to need some proof on that, brother. I mean, I'm not rocking for the other team, but I'm just looking objectively, like you keep coming with the nature of certain things, empty calories is what is pushing towards the excess consumption, right? The fact that it is laden with sugars, which in itself becomes this addictive, uh almost like a drug, right? So they're saying that the additives apart from the nutrition is what's causing it, but no, sugar has been seen, has been studied, and that it itself has an addictive quality. But one of the things the UPF does is when you're consuming it, because the calorie, it's devoid of nutrition to a certain degree, you're eating empty calories, and therefore you will continue to eat more. I think 68 needs to be fleshed out more, but let's continue. 69. A randomized control trial conducted by the NIH, okay, National Institute of Health, meticulously matched the diets of inpatient subjects by nutritional composition. One with one which received a UPF diet, and the other group receiving nutritionally identical diet of real food. The group receiving the UPF diet consumed over 500 calories more each day and gained approximately a pound a week. By contrast, the group receiving real food lost weight. I would have to look at that study. Again, if it lacks fiber and it lacks nutrition, and it does have those uh, additives in there, then the person is going to continue to eat because the body is not satisfied. You know what I'm saying? The body has not gotten its nutrition that it needs. That's why it keeps you're still hungry, even though you keep snacking. You eating, you're hungry because you're eating empty calories, right? So that study, I'm gonna mark that right there for myself. I'm gonna go look for this study. Where did my thing go? Hold on, peoples. It was number 69. Wait up. Hold on. What happened? They don't let me mark the paper? Anyway, I'm going to remember that. 7. Oh, there it goes. Okay. There we go. Okay. A second randomized controlled trial with a similar design confirmed these results, finding that individuals fed an UPF diet consumed 113.5 calories a day and gained an average of 1.2 pounds each week compared to fed a non-UPF diet. Let's continue. This is they doing Pilates. I think it's a little more nuanced than that. They are doing Pilates right now. They stretching. Yes, but what are all the other factors, right? 71. Despite this fact, the health harms caused by UPF are not solely a function of weight gain they cause either. Like nutrient contents, the studies of UPF control for obesity and other confounders and demonstrate that UPF causes unique risk of serious disease independent of weight gain they cause. 72. The risk of type 2 diabetes is one of the most robustly studied effects of UPF. Independent researchers throughout the world have determined that scientific evidence that UPF increased the risk of type 2 diabetes is convincing, quote unquote, and that there is a clear link between UPF and a higher risk of type 2 diabetes. Now, this right here. Yeah. Again, it's not just the ultra processed foods. I may bonfire upon ultra processed food for the longest time, but it's not just ultra processed foods. It is the consumption and the overconsumption of carbs, starches, and sugars, and the body's inability to process these in the abundance that the people are consuming it in. Not enough fibrous vegetables, not enough greens, too much meat, and the body is being taxed through the constant eating and the digestive process and the eating of, you can eat a lot of one thing It's natural. It's not far on the Nova chart, but you're over consuming it. Like, I don't I don't know if you guys have seen any of those channels on YouTube where they're like village life. There's one particular village life that they live in a cave, okay? Real talk. I think it's in Afghanistan. Right? Sometimes I just like watching quiet YouTube. So anyway, one day the mother go cook no. And I'm saying, what the backside? All right, then I peel potato. I'm like, okay, cool. My girl go boil some water for some noodle. I say, all right, I wish I go with that. Then she come again with some rice. So my girl served the youth them that day. Potato, pan top of noodle, pan top of rice. So when that lick them system, all the potato, starch, noodle, starch, rice, starch, all that sugar. So even though they didn't eat any UPFs, I didn't see them busting open a bag of Frito-Lays, okay? Or drinking, washing it down with a Coca-Cola. However, the body still works the same. The body still has to process all of these. It's still going to release, the pancreas is still going to release the insulin. It's still going to try to bring down those sugar levels in the system, right? So this is why I don't fully agree with this particular part, because I've been heavily studying this type 2 diabetes situation. But anyway, 73. There are multiple potential mechanisms by which UPF causes increased health risks. All right. For example, UPF consumption is associated with oxidative stress, true. Chronic inflammation, true. Alterations of immune signaling, true. Intestinal dysbiosis? I just chopped that word. I ain't even gonna lie. Sometimes when I'm reading these papers and the words get crazy, them words is getting chopped. Mitochondrial metabolism alterations. 75. Ultra processing techniques have been linked to the formation of endocrine disruptors and exposure to endocrine disrupting compounds. True. 76. Additives present in UPF, such as emulsifiers, preservatives, dyes, stabilizers, thickening agents, and surfactants, have also been known or shown to cause endocrine disruption. This is true. Let's continue. They went in on this paper. Exposure to endocrine disruptors in UPS has also been shown to occur as a result of leachate from food packaging materials, including chemicals such as BPA, phthalates, PFAS, and organ phosphate ethers. What ultimately, the way they're moving on this conversation is really going to bring it back into local. Because the conversation that they're having, even in this space, about the packaging, right? It makes it difficult to move food around if it's not securely packaged. So when you watch a lot of archaeological digs, like I do, they find packaging, but ancient packaging was what? Clay, woven bags, but mostly clay pots. So when they do digs in Africa, and they do digs all over the world, what do they find? These packaging materials that they stored their rice and their beans and their fruits and their harvest. It's in these clay pots, these earthen vessels. But today, okay, they have moved towards even beyond paper, and they have moved into how do they store and process and transport safely all of these things. So what it's spelling to me is going back to eating mostly what is local to your region, or eating that which, if it comes from somewhere else, it has to be dried and preserved in a way that these things don't leach into the foods. But I'm gonna continue. Phosphate containing additives can also disrupt the endocrine system and hormonal regulation of nutrients. Because some of these things are mimicking hormones and they're binding to these hormone receptors, which is causing the disruption. As for instance, I've been doing this study on coffee because in 1 minute, coffee is good for the heart, but in the next minute, um what I found out recently is that in one of the papers that I pulled down is that coffee is binding, it binds to a certain receptor that disrupts the ATP process, which is the process by which your cell gets energy. I haven't fully finished going through it, but I'm like, what is all of this contradicting information? So another thing to note, I'm not saying that they're all out of pocket for what they're doing, but you have to go behind them a little bit and look at these studies to see if there was any conflict of interest, if these were paid studies or if these were independent studies, right? Because sometimes people pay researchers to do things so that they can come and say nothing is wrong with this, especially if they want to sell it on the market. Yeah, nah, man. Lala says we need to be daily drinking our homemade detox drinks, lemon, turmeric, garlic, and honey concoction daily to neutralize and fight off toxins and viruses. This is what it's coming back to. People need, like Lala said, we need to take control, because what this lawsuit is doing is saying that the individual does not have control. The family unit does not have control over what they eat and drink, and therefore they're heavily dependent on all of these prepackaged foods, and therefore they are responsible, and now they should pay them because they made them sick. But the reality is we the people give that power up. That's how you get here. You give the power up to somebody else, right? So let's continue. Additives can directly modulate the composition and function of intestinal microbiota, driving microbiota encroachment and chronic intestinal inflammation, thus exacerbating metabolic dysfunction. In the short, this particular one right here, that time when I threw out all the food back in the day, I remember I was gung ho, I was hyped. So I was like, I'm gonna go to the library and I want to talk to people. We want to talk about health and all of this stuff. And I remember only one person showed up. One lonely person showed up to my class. It was okay. I was still in there, right? And it was a man, and he said, if I could find, he really started talking to me, right? So I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like, I like to research. Give me a challenge. So he was like, if you could find the reason that has the core of his, I think it was of his diabetes. I still have the notebook in there, right? So anyway, I went back and did some research. I did a lot of research, and I met the guy again, and I spoke to him, and I asked him a series of questions. This is for number 79. And I asked him if he had reoccurring yeast infections. And this is why. This microbiota, or your microbes that live within your gut intestine, right? Now we see a lot about probiotics and prebiotics and gut bacteria. And because the reality is when you eat these nutrient devoid foods, and what it does is it kills off the good bacteria that is within our gut that allows it to break down food, right? And it's part of our processes. And it causes the bad bacteria, because they're also in there. There's a gut microbiome that's supposed to be balanced. And this bad bacteria gets out of control, right? And when it gets out of control, you have things like yeast infections, thrush in the mouth. Candida basically is one of these bacteria that can run. Candida lives off the sugar. It likes sugar. This is where also it gives messages to the brain. It lets poisonous fumes off in the system, right? It can make you sick. There's a lot of things that goes on. And so one of the things I talked to him about, and after that I talked to many people about, is a candida cleanse. That's something that we need to look into, especially if somebody says they cannot cake their sweet, they have a sweet tooth. It may not be you. It may be the fact that your microbiome is off and the candida albicans is running amok in your intestines, right? They also run amok when you don't naturally go to the bathroom as you should. But that's another story for another day. I'm just going to keep continuing here. right? Uh, let's see. Additives induce intestinal micro, what is this? Dysbiosis, no, dysbiosis, which stimulates pro-inflammatory signaling and can predispose people to several diseases such as hypertension, obesity, diabetes, and other cardiometabolic disorders. And this is part of the reason why we'd be like, what? Because it's like it's not translating. Like, what are they talking about? It's not just the additives. This is why I'm not wholly in agreement. It's not just the additives. It is also what we're eating out of. Like if you eat too much bread, if you drink too much, you make your own lemonade, but you put too much sugar in there. Like, you know what I mean? It's all of that. Anyway, 81. Inflammatory signaling can induce metabolic disease, such as type 2 diabetes, by desensitizing insulin receptor signals. Essentially, that is insulin resistance. Right here is talking about insulin resistance, where your body keeps pumping out a lot of insulin because you are inundating the body with too much sugar one time. And so it's supposed to pull it into the cells, but when the cells have become full and can no longer take it in, it puts it into fat. This is why sugar is also connected with excess weight gain. And I'm not just talking about cane sugar. I'm talking about what breaks down to sugars in the system. So it starts putting on fat to store these toxins in the fat cells, right? So yes, it's connected, but it's not just the ultra processed foods. But let's continue. I gotta see how to say this word because I'm chopping this word up too much. Hold on one second. Dysbio. Hold on. Hold on. Let me see how to pronounce this. How's everybody doing today? Okay. How come I can't hear nothing? Here we go. Dysbiosis. All right. We ain't going to chop it up no more. Dysbiosis induced by chronic exposure to additives can drive chronic intestinal as well as systematic inflammation, which can affect other organs. The presence of chronic inflammation disrupts the homeostatic balance, altering the crosswalk between immune and metabolic responses and promoting chronic metabolic inflammation. And you know where you could see this problem at? You have immigrants who come from all different countries, the Caribbean, South America, India, Europe, Asia, no matter where they come from. But the minute they get to America and start eating American food, in 2 to 3 years, you'll be like, wow, right? So there is definitely something in the food that is expediting the process, is making you get to this endpoint quicker than in other spaces. Let's continue. The presence of chronic inflammation, I already read that. 84. The resulting immune cell infiltration and secretion of inflammatory cytokines into the tissue environment can inhibit glucose uptake and alter lipid metabolism. This increases the risk of non-communicable disease such as cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. All that's true. All that's true. And again, you may pick up a box of crackers. You are not looking, for the most part, that box of crackers or that bag of chips is supposed to have, let's say, 8 servings. But if you eat the whole thing, which I've been guilty of in times past, you just ate all 8 servings. So that nutritional fact that they have on the back is not for the whole bag, except if now they have it side by side. But they'll be like 3 chips is 200 calories. You feel me? And you ate the whole bag. So now you just ate 1,000 calories in one sitting. This is the things that we need to bring more attention to. Let's see here. Research has also suggested that nutrient concentrations in natural foods share universal structure rooted in the nature of biochemical processes governing nutrient synthesis and regulation. Ultra processed processing disrupts this nutrient balance that humans are genetically adapted to, and the human metabolism may not be able to properly process nutrient distributions that substantially deviate from the natural range and structure observed in natural foods. For instance, it spoke about concentrated, and I spoke about this before. I did a video a couple of months ago on I forget the name of it, but it was a health video. And I was reading a report about sugar and cancer. It's better to eat the mango than to drink, 3 or 4 mangoes at one time in a mango concentrate, because the fiber that would have been present in the mango is no longer there because you stripped it away, or apples, right? So the pectin, the fiber, and the nutrients that's in that part of the apple that will slow the glucose spike that you would experience because of the fiber helps to slow the glucose spike. That no longer happens because you took that away and you made it a concentrate. So in the concentrate, if you look at apples, and we could do this at another time, the amount in 1 cup of apple juice, the amount of sugar is, even though you say, I give the children apple juice, you give them a quarter of that juice and you put water the rest of the way, because you are slapping their system with too much sugar one time. Anyway, research has indicated that the destruction of natural food structures, also known as food matrix, affects satiety. What is wrong with me tonight? Satiety and glycemic response. And I just went over that because that part is true. It's late, y'all. I'm chopping up all these words. Basically, it's affecting the fact that you're full and how your body processes it. Lala says to set up our own mini vegetation planters, potato, carrot, broccoli, and fruit seeds. This is what it's pushing you to. Queenie says the seedlings can also have been tampered with. When you grow tomatoes, use them in a soup, you get all orange, red stain, the same processed tomato sauce. It's a lot. Even when for somebody who's been on the being conscious, it is a lot. And there's a lot of people who like, oh, that's too much energy to expel just to get some energy. So there is a balance that one has to walk, but there are definitely some steps that can be taken to alleviate, as this lawsuit is saying, some of the heavy hitters. Because you're going to get into nuance like looking for a seeded watermelon, looking for seeded grapes. Look, you're going to get into, those type of things. But the reality is the ultra processed foods, for real. When we go to the supermarket, every time we get to the checkout, even the checkout people be looking like, oh, wow, is this in the store? Because I'm buying a bag of barley, dried barley. My children know how to make porridge. You know what I'm saying? You buy green banana and plant and blend it up and make some porridge. You get things that are closest to their natural form as possible, and then prepare that. You understand? So it takes time. Don't use no microwave. Don't put stuff in. I can't tell you when the last time. I've been using microwave in about 20 years. I don't use microwave. You understand? Because the microwave in and of itself, on top of the ultra processed foods, it's this is why I'm saying it's not just ultra processed foods, it's all of the culture that's around it. You understand? But it's just to be conscious and cognizant. You want to make a cake? Bake the cake. Don't, you know what I'm saying? Make the cake from scratch. Make it, because we have subtracted the culture and the connectivity that comes around food, that also contributes to the ailment and sickness. There are research about people who eat alone right? How feelings and emotions affect how you eat, what you eat, when you eat, right? There's people that communalness around a common thing and sitting and eating and having conversation is missing. So when somebody's in front of a television, they may be more inclined to overeat than, let's say, if they were at the dinner table, right? And the reality is, if you participate in the cooking process, oftentimes just smelling the food, by the time you sit down to eat the food, you're not that hungry anymore, because the whole process of going through preparing, getting it tapers down the appetite. Just Do says it don't have a microwave. Yeah, one microwave. Microwave is not, people microwave water, they microwave foods. It's not a good thing, because you turn around and consume that, and those are also contributing factors as well. So let me just read a little bit more here. I'm gonna have to chop this whole lawsuit up, because it's a lot of pages. They're really going in. All of these harmful effects occur as a result of ultra processing itself, and do not rely on nutrient content to cause harm. The poor nutrient balance common in UPF further exacerbates these ill effects, but does not cause them. And I guess that's their stance. That's their hill, right? That's where they at. They're like, it's UPF. UPF is going down, right? It's not the nutrients. It's the ultra processing of these things. And I maintain it's both. And it's beyond the ultra processed foods came into a conversation that was happening. Like when you look at I think it was Snickers, if I'm not mistaken, in World War II, they got the contract with the government to provide these energy bars, because what was happening is, y'all know me, I'm gonna go into the research. According to them, out of the Great Depression, the country had an issue with food. They had soup kitchens and long lines, and they had an issue meeting the needs of the people. So they started looking at how you can get, like inventors and food, how you can get more calories in a small amount that costs less. So things like these bars, they came in because it was at a time where people did not have access to all that they have now. So they eat a Snicker bar with the peanuts and the sugar. It gives them energy to go out and do their work. I think it was Snickers, if I'm not mistaken, who got the contract with the government. One second, because you know me. Snickers contract. Hold on one second. So I don't think it's just to only act. Yeah. I think it was Snickers. I might have to come back on that one, but I think it was Snickers. I'm remembering that it was Snickers. I'm gonna have to come back on that one. But let's continue. Let me see. Wait a minute. Let me see if they're going left. All right, I'm gonna read a little more. UPF is inextricably intertwined with big tobacco. Oh boy, idiot. Early attempts at ultra processing arose around the world wars. Didn't I just say this? I told you I didn't read this lawsuit. I'm literally just reading this lawsuit with you right now. Early attempts at ultra processing arose around world wars of the early 20th century in an effort to respond to wartime shortages. Literally, these projects included efforts to create artificial sweetness from coal tar and Nazi German efforts to create butter substitutes for coal waste. It actually happened a little before, because it says World War, but then it goes to around the second one. And like it was happening before, because in the Civil War, when I was studying the slavery, they was talking about when the war was broke out between the North and the South, that there was a hard line essentially drawn in the sand, and that the South couldn't get access to certain things, like coffee, and that they started looking for alternatives. I forgot what they were drinking to try to substitute that need that they had for coffee during that time, right? When people were rationing certain things. So this ultra processed food starts before, it starts in the late 1800s, coming towards the 1900s. Well, anyway, in 89, while a small amount of novel UPF entered the domestic market in the 1950s and 60s, small amount. Anyway, in the 1970s, the U.S. food environment was dominated by traditional food during that time frame. Define, what do you mean by that? Define small. Anyway, as an indicator of this, in the 1980s, only 13% of US homes had microwave ovens. I'm surprised he ain't throw the make of microwave ovens up in here. Throw everybody in the pot. You're making gumbo. Before the 1970s, the food environment in the US was largely supplied by smaller local food producers and regional companies. Now, what I say, you might have to go back to basics. Might have to go back to basics. Lala says Snickers confession, a weakness of mine. Yes, Snickers. I think it's Snickers. We'll have that conversation. Y'all throw in the box what is your weakness? What's your Achilles heel? And then we'll go over it on another episode of this conversation so that we can, kind of get a handle on what got some people. It's when I was younger, when I was a little kid, Sour Powers had me in the when I was little, Sour Powers. You go to the corner store, but it was all over, right? You a dollar will have you on a whole diabetes trail. Okay, back in the day, you buying everything. Now later, you buying Sour Powers, you buying everything. A bag of chips, all kind of stuff. Quarter water, which was just straight poison. Reese's cups. Okay, we're gonna look at Reese's cups. We're gonna look at Snickers. Y'all put whatever has you. When you see it, you gotta get it. You don't know why. You just gotta have a stash. Just put it there, and we'll come back another time and take a look at it specifically. So because there was a history of the Reese's cup too. There was a because Hershey is really who kicked it off. He was trying to find a way to make this chocolate uh where it is that it was the perfect formula, this milk. So he literally built Hershey, this Hershey location in Pennsylvania before he perfected the recipe. His story is wild. But anyway, 90. Before the 1970s, the food environment in the United States was largely supplied by smaller local producers and regional companies. However, in the 1970s and 80s, larger food companies began controlling the food environment by absorbing smaller food producers and centralizing and increasing the amount of food processing and distribution efforts. You know what's curious? It just hit me. Why doesn't he have McDonald's, Burger King, why doesn't he have them in here? Because they are also ultra processed foods. Before they started, like, they grew side by side. They grew side by side, like the story of McDonald's, Burger King, all of these fast foods. How much did the person in their lawsuit eat these ultra processed foods versus how much did they eat these fast foods? I would ask that question. I'm not, because, Anyway, let's continue. 91, the big tobacco companies, R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris, were leaders in this market shift. 92. I don't know how I feel about this. R.J. Reynolds first entered the food market in the 1960s with his acquisition of Hawaiian Punch. You remember Hawaiian Punch? It caused enough diabetes. Let me see how much sugar content in a Hawaiian Punch. How much sugar in Hawaiian? That was beer sugar. Hawaiian Punch. Rated. Hawaiian Punch around 18 to 22 grams of sugar per serving, equivalent to 4.5 to 5.5 teaspoons of sugar. That means, this is what I'm trying to convey to we the people. What this means is that one serving, which for them they're saying is 12 ounces, 60 calories, 25 grams. That means if a picnic drink 12 ounces of Hawaiian punch, that's all the sugar that they are supposed to have for the day. And that's the top side of all the sugar they're supposed to have for the day. Chips, I agree. Right? That's the top side of all the sugar they're supposed to have. So 1 cup of Hawaiian punch. That's to show you that the parent is not realizing that. Right? The child may have 2 cups. The child may go on to eat this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that. Next thing you know, for that day, the child is 4 times beyond their recommended amount of sugar. And if you do this and you compound it for the next 5 years, now the child is pre-diabetic, but nobody knows. The body become insulin resistant. Nobody knows until they go to the doctor. Doctor tell you, say, the 12-year-old is diabetic. I saw it work. Anyway, let's continue. In a 1962 internal memo, R.J. Reynolds, head of biochemical research, encouraged the company to enter the field of artificial foods, flavors, and fragrances, writing, "It is easy to characterize R.J. Reynolds merely as a tobacco company in a broader and much less restricting sense. However, R.J. Reynolds is in the flavor business. This flavor business will greatly expand by the addition of the soft drink line, presently in a advanced development stage. Present. Meanwhile, our interest in non-tobacco areas are developing. It is probable that many flavorants from tobacco will be used in food, beverage, and other products. If we become a basic producer of tobacco flavorants, we will have started to become a basic producer in the general flavor industry. The market for synthetic flavoring agents will greatly expand during the next 20 to 25 years. If R.J. Reynolds were to establish a position in their field now, it will realize large financial returns from these developments." They went on to say, and I'm going to stop here at 93. Let me just put a little mark here so for sure we shall stop. Oh, that's a crazy mark. Over the ensuing 15 years, R.J. Reynolds acquired a number of food companies, and by 1979 was boasting of being a major force in the worldwide consumer packaged goods with strong positions in tobacco and foods. Me not think them can sue one without the other, although they're doing it, because one side was pushing the other side, and the other side is pushing the prepackaged foods. Is both of them are interacting off of one another. That's why you can find Checkers fries in the supermarket now. Checkers is a fast food brand. You can find their fries in the supermarket. TGI Friday, the same thing. You start to see these brands foods in the supermarket because one thing is feeding the other, right? Let me know your thoughts on this. I'm gonna stop right here at 93 because that was a lot. I'm starting to see their case come together. It may be a few holes in it. You know what I mean? They may have to tighten it up a little bit. It's kind of broad, but I believe it will open the door for a few months. What do you think of the case? Yeah, I think the case is I think Lala said you never heard of Hawaiian Punch. Yeah, Hawaiian Punch is in America. You're losing your excitement on your topic. Love your exasperated side followed by a pick me up tone. No, it's not that. It's overwhelming. It's not that I'm losing. It's overwhelming only because there's been an area of interest for so long. And I'm glad to see that they're finally, and this is also to Artist's question, what I think about the case. I'm glad to see that they're finally taking a look at it, but it's disheartening to see that you're only looking at it from financial gain. You understand? Of course, you're lawyers and that's the way you're approaching the topic. But to me, it's disheartening that that's the way you're approaching the topic. You understand what I'm saying? If it can make any sense. Like, this has been an issue. I think they cast a very wide net, and it has a lot of holes in it. The net is too broad, and therefore the holes are, there's a lot of space for them to wiggle through. Some of the connections that they're making references, but other people can go to these very peer-reviewed articles and draw another conclusion, right? The fact that they're separating and trying to say that it's just the ultra processed foods and not necessarily the nutrient deficientness, because the reality is the foods themselves are becoming less and less nutrient dense because the soil, the processes, the growing seasons, all of those things. So to say that it's not the food and it's only the ultra processed component is disingenuous. You understand? So that's why I'm kind of like, like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? And this is why you can't necessarily even compare here to other countries, because in the growing process in these other countries, maybe they're using more natural fertilizers, they're using natural processes, they're not force ripening the food. Therefore, the people who are eating the food are getting more benefit from the food. And even if they made that food into something else, you would still get the benefit of it. As opposed to here, when you see the way that the food is being grown, already there it lacks levels of nutrients that it should have. Therefore, once you process it excessively, it just exasperates it. So my concern with this is that they're trying to separate the two. Let me take a little swig here. They're trying to separate the two, and I could see why. Again, this is $1 trillion all-star team that they have assembled here. And it could be a big payday. You understand? And that's why they're actively on social media. Let me show you them actively on social media, because I think they're going to finesse it and try to take it into a class action. But also, my issue is that it takes away agency from the individual, from the families. It disempowers people to say you're solely dependent on what they're giving you, and it's all their fault because they're responsible for your health and wellness. I don't agree with that. But I do believe, like artists saying, it's an open door. I think they're going to have to refine it. You know what I mean? They're going to have to refine it because, phew, that's a big net there, buddy. That is a big net. Let me do one more thing here to show that I think they are trying to get people on board for their lawsuit here. They're looking for money. They're looking for money. So it's like, do you really care? Do you really care? I guess I'm not seeing. They're looking for a payday. I think the people should take this as, how come I don't see the ad where them are run? I don't see the ads they're running. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Let me know. Oh, here it is. Let me show y'all the ad real quick. All right, here's the ad that they're running because they look like they're trying to get more people on board. Has your child been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or non-fatty alcohol fatty liver disease before the age of 21? If so, you may qualify to join our lawsuit. And then they have them answering a few questions. So yeah, they look like they trying to get this class action lawsuit popping. They're using the person who first came forward. You know, they're throwing together some some data, but I don't think it's being wholly honest about how this really happens, because inactivity also contributes to the development of these things. I think so. I agree, artists. That change, it definitely has the ability. Because look, I'm here having a conversation because it's relevant now. Although I've been having a conversation, and many people have been having a conversation. Many of the elders have been conversation, and it's relevant now. I mean, it's important to note that today the social media allows us to see doctors who are coming forward and saying that they didn't have to take more than one nutrition class when they went to school. Now, the course that I'm taking, I have to take nutrition, biochemistry, all of this other stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, then what are they studying over there? They studying I had to take physiology, anatomy, all that. And you only had to take one nutrition class. That means that the way that the doctors are approaching this conversation is not from a nutrition standpoint. One would need to go to a nutritionist who is specifically studied in this area, right? Because they are not considering certain things. Like I know for a fact, someone I know, most I arrested, had cancer and was in the hospital. And the menu for the cancer patient had food that historically fed cancer. I was confused. Brought it to the attention. Like, how are y'all serving? Who is down there? Where is the dietitian? Okay, who is prescribing these foods for somebody who struggled with this ailment? And some of them will tell you, yeah, you can eat that. There's no problem with that. But also be careful of those herbs. It's like, wait, hold on. You're giving the person who has cancer a donut, telling them there's nothing wrong, but be careful of those herbs. So this is kind of the stuff that's going on that we need to be mindful of. You know, each one teach one, and we learn as we go, right? But we do need to take more responsibility for ourselves, our lives, and our health. Do not wholly put it, especially if money is the bottom line, do not wholly put that responsibility in somebody else's hands. It is intentional that a bag of pistachios could run you $14, $15, that cashews are $10 a pound, that almonds are so expensive. It is intentional. That dried fruits, right now I'm making a product and I'm looking for dried fruits. Dried fruits are expensive, especially dried fruits with because everything I do, I try to go, I'm not going to give anybody anything I wouldn't eat, right? So no sulfur, unsulfured, unsweetened. That is in itself over here, like I'm over here like Indiana Jones looking through a needle in a haystack. Unsulfured, unsweetened, because the sulfur that they add to things to quote unquote preserve color also has adverse effects. So when we go even for healthier options, we have to make sure that we're mindful of those things too. Unsulfured, unsweetened. Because even in the dried fruits, they're adding all of these things that don't belong, in the fruit. Colorants and flavorants and everything else. Anywho, with that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This has been interesting, and I agree. Hopefully, this conversation would open the eyes. It's an uphill battle. Some of the stuff that they said, I agree. Some of the stuff is a reach. I definitely understand they want to paint a picture and they want the payday, but then this would lead people to think it's only the ultra processed foods, and it's the fast foods, it's the things that they're putting in the breads, it's the things they're putting in the meat, it's the hormones, it's a whole lot of stuff. It's a whole lot of stuff. Like I literally saw some Indian, they're claiming that this is a ripening agent, and they were dipping the bananas. I don't know if anybody saw that. They were dipping these green bananas into this ripening agent so that they can ripen it faster. I saw them dipping vegetables into colorants so that it can be bright and that the people will want to eat it. I'm like, what the heck? What is wrong with humanity? What in the world? Hold on one second. What is going on and why? What is going on and why? But anyway, injecting chemicals. I'm like, why? Why are we doing this? But anywho, thank everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna go ahead and boogie, rest my brand. We'll come back and start from 94 and see what else they talking about here. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Oh yeah, by the way, let me see here. Let me stop sharing this thing right here. Queenie, enjoy your day as well. Enjoy your day as well. Click the links in the description below. New book is out, Madame. You guys saw the whole process of writing that book. I've been sharing it in other social spaces. They say they like it. I'm gonna try to put up some more outtakes on the community board and just support the thing, support the channel so we could continue to do what it is that we do. All right. With that said, everybody have a blessed day and take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones. One.